Let's talk about that new polling this morning that reveals Donald Trump is leading President Biden in every closely watched swing state. But the former president has one major Achilles heel. He loses a majority of voters in those key states if he is found guilty of the multitude of charges against him. Joining us now, White House reporter for Bloomberg, Akayla Gardner. 53% say they would be unwilling to vote for Donald Trump if he is convicted. Akayla, does this apply to civil or federal or all? What do you know?
Yeah, this is all. This is any crime. And as you mentioned, it's more than half of voters, and even more if he's facing prison time. But the key statistic here is nearly 1 in 4 Republicans say that they would be uncomfortable with supporting Donald Trump. That's a pretty big number when we're talking about convictions. Donald Trump is facing 4 criminal trials. He's also facing 90 felony charges here. So this is something that could really happen. And I do think this is probably the scenario or the reason that we're still seeing Nikki Haley staying in this race and committing to stay till Super Tuesday is in the chance that this happens, or if there is some other major legal development, that she will be obviously the last person standing. But it's still hard to see enough voters moving from Donald Trump to Nikki Haley for her to become the nominee. Right. But yet this is still a clear weakness for Donald Trump, for something that he has really tried to turn into his strength, and that is his legal challenges.
So Joe Biden's challenge is very evident if you look at each one of these swing states. He's down 3 in Arizona, down 5 in Michigan, down 8 in Georgia, down 8 in Nevada, down 10 in Colorado, plus down 3 in Pennsylvania, down 5 in Wisconsin. These polls show, and let's see, margin of error, are these likely voters? What are they, likely voters?
He's still within the margin of error in Arizona and Pennsylvania. But looking back to 2020, Biden won 6 of these 7 states, all except for North Carolina. So these are huge states that he needs to win again. And we're seeing weaknesses in places like Michigan, where Arab Americans are really uncomfortable with the administration's response to the Israel-Hamas war. We saw Biden's campaign manager try to take a trip there, and they were turned away this weekend. So really showing that Arab Americans, Muslims really view this as a huge issue, and they really want to see more rhetoric from President Biden, really taking a harder stance on Israel.
What were the issues most important in this poll to voters?
Things that stood out to me for sure is immigration grew in importance, and that of course happens as we're talking about this deal on Capitol Hill, but it grew almost entirely among Republicans, particularly among men and voters above 65 years old. Also, the economy slightly dropped in terms of importance, and that really reflects some of the things that we've seen about consumer sentiment. Consumers are really feeling better about the economy, and this is huge and great news for Joe Biden, even though it's only slight, and showing that inflation cooling is really starting to resonate for really the first time that we've seen in a while.
Yeah, this is among about 5,000 registered voters in all these states. So as you report this out, Akayla, and talk to the White House, obviously they feel like they've got to win that swath of the Midwestern states, which appear to be among the closer ones here. What's the level of concern you pick up in talking to the White House, talking to people around the campaign about a poll like this?
Yeah, I think the main issue is that we've seen multiple of these polls, and you cannot ignore when there's such a multiple evidence that you have, especially in swing states, that Biden has a real problem here. But some of the highlights, again, from this poll, democracy also grew in importance, particularly among Democratic voters. It was 25 to 21% in terms of importance to the economy. And that is something that we saw in the midterms was really a strength for Democrats in 2022. And also abortion. And that's something that I'm sure that they're going to be betting on again, is that those 2 issues are really going to shine through when it comes to Biden campaigning. And of course, in the midterms, the economy was in a much worse place than it is today. And yet those issues seem to really win out in the midterms.
White House reporter for Bloomberg, Akayla Gardner, thank you very much for your reporting this morning. We appreciate it.